Thanks, Tom. I'm here today because my story is so similar to the stories of the children that you saw in the beginning of our program today. My understanding of poverty started at a very young age, and I believe that there is a time for most of us when we begin to understand our place in the world, where we fit, and how we're labeled. This happened for me when I rode the bus to school for the very first time. The bus picked me up in the trailer park where I lived and moved on to other neighborhoods. And I can remember thinking that the houses in those neighborhoods were huge and that the kids coming out of them were somehow all wearing much cooler clothes than I was. And when I went home from school that day, I didn't talk about my day at school, but I talked about how I couldn't understand why some kids lived in what I considered to be real homes, had better lunches, and even basic things like backpacks. And this is the first time I remember my mother using the response, "Because life isn't fair." And she was right. Life isn't fair. For those of us born into poverty, we're more likely to have developmental delays, behavioral issues, and to drop out of high school. And after my father passed away, these statistics started to prove true. My mother was left to raise 4 children on her own, and she really struggled. So in the 9th grade, I made a choice to join the 20% of dropouts nationwide who leave high school to help support their families. And when I made that choice, I faced new challenges. Statistics now said that I was twice as likely to live in poverty throughout my adulthood, and that I was 63 times more likely to be incarcerated than those who make it to high school graduation. Now, after some time had passed, I knew that I had to do more if I was going to change the course of my life. I knew that my next step was to transfer to a 4-year university, and I had to start somewhere. So I completed my GED, and I started going to community college. Now, what I very quickly realized is that when you start going to college with an 8th grade education, it's pretty tough. What this meant for me was that I had to compensate. I had to do a lot of extra stuff in order to stay on track. There was a significant amount of time in tutoring. There were many sleepless nights as I tried to teach myself things like the basic concepts of algebra and other subjects. And I did this while I was working 2 to 3 jobs because that was simply my reality. A couple of years and many credits later, I knew that I was ready to take that next step. I was ready to transfer to a 4-year university. And I know that we're in bison country, but when you grow up in Texas like I did, you usually want to go to the University of Texas at Austin. It's ranked the 17th best public university in the country. Now, I can be kind of a go big or go home kind of gal, so I decided that this is where I was going to go to school. And I told my academic counselor my plans. I was very excited to tell her my plans, and she looked at me and she told me that I should reevaluate my goals. She told me that I should adjust my expectations. She told me that with my background, I shouldn't set myself up for disappointment. She told me my odds were too slim. And I remember leaving that meeting in tears, and I went and I sat in my car in the parking lot, and I had this moment where I felt hopeless. I felt hopeless because I couldn't understand how I could go through that much work for years and not have the same opportunities as others. And I allowed myself to feel that way for a few minutes, and then, as sometimes happens with me, the rebellious part of me came out, and I vowed to prove her wrong. And later that year, when I received my acceptance letter to the University of Texas at Austin, the first thing that I did was very proudly mail her a copy. After I had completed all the credits I needed to attain my degree, I stood on the stage at graduation at the University of Texas, and I gave the commencement speech. And the best part of that moment, and the best part of this entire experience for me, was that I could look in the audience and I could see my siblings. And they now knew that a path out of poverty and hardship existed, despite those who would doubt their abilities and the statistics that would indicate that they would fail. Today, I am not another statistic. My past drives my passion for my work at the YWCA, where I have the honor of being a part of a mission to empower other women and help families who are often born into a cycle of poverty themselves. The message that I wish so badly that the 6,000 youth living in poverty in our community could hear is this: don't let anyone or anything have the power to define who you are. Any amount of doubt, shame, fear, and limitation you think exists, don't own it, and don't let it own you. You have the strength to overcome any obstacle and to achieve any dream. I had the opportunity to change my story, and now I challenge you to work together and support the United Way to change the stories of the many individuals and families like mine living in poverty in our community. If you can change the story, you can change everything. Thank you.